هي عظيم في محكم كتابه الكريم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Please recite a loud salawat for the love of al-Banin. Inshallah, tonight we'll be spending the time examining the life of our ninth Imam, Imam al-Jawad, عليه أفضل الصلاة والسلام. It is sad to see that the Shia community neglects some Imams, and Imam al-Jawad is among those Imams that we overlook at the life of this Imam. We do not focus and learn from his lifeline and from his biography that what kind of strong points this Ahl al-Bayt عليه أفضل الصلاة والسلام had. And the traditions that comes with the Ahl al-Bayt, each and every one of them has a benefit for us living even 1,000 years later after their death, that we can gather something and gain something from those ahadith. Imam al-Jawad starting from his birthday, and that we said that if you ask many of the Shia youth, they don't know even his birthday. That he was born on the 195 after Hijrah, on the 10th of Rajab. And he passed away, he demised at the age of 25, 220 after Hijrah, making him the youngest Imam from the Shia, the youngest Imam from the Imams of the 12 Imams that we believe in. That we see Imam al-Jawad faced many difficulties that other Imams didn't face. One of those is he was the youngest in his timeline, in his period, to become an Imam. Because if you looked at the life, for example, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, you find when Rasulullah passed away, Imam Ali was in his 30s, he was matured, and he could have been an Imam, and he was the Imam of that time. Even Imam al-Hassan, Imam al-Hussein, they were old enough to become an Imam. But when it comes to Imam al-Jawad, when his father passed away, he was at the age of 7.5. That some say at the age of 8. And that was for some Shia, from some believers of Ahl al-Bayt, it was kind of confusing that how could a young man at this age become an Imam? And they had this question asking from Imam al-Jawad عليه أفضل الصلاة والسلام, even from his father Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. Because Imam Rida, if you look at his life, he was in his 40s, he was 43, 44 years of age, and he didn't have any sons. His companions come to him every single day asking him, do you have any sons? Will there be any sons that you have, that he will become the next Imam? And Imam al-Rida عليه أفضل الصلاة والسلام tells them, yes, wait for it. By the time Imam al-Jawad was born and he was in his 3rd year, they came to him, many of the companions, they asked Imam al-Rida, who is the next Imam if something happened to you? If someone, in those days it was very normal that the Imam is killed. If you, God forbid, something happens to you, who will be the next person taking over? And Imam al-Rida used to point out to Imam al-Jawad, used to say him, he will be the next leader. The companions, they look and they say, he is a child, he's that time, he was in his 4th or 5th year, and he wasn't that old enough. They said, he's a young boy, he's a young lad, how could he be an Imam? And Imam Rida used to look at them and he says, Allah Azza wa Jalla, when he created Isa ibn Maryam, when Isa was born and his mother Maryam brought him to the city, Allah Azza wa Jalla, if you look in Surah Maryam, you can find it says, فَأَشَارَتْ إِلَيْهِ. Because when the people, they saw Maryam holding the child, and that was Isa, they came to Maryam, and this is in Surah Maryam, you can find the whole story. They said to Maryam, how could you go and commit adultery? How dare you? You are the daughter of such and the sister of such, and she was a maid, she was a servant of the temple. She was the servant of the temple. How dare you do that kind of thing? And here Allah Azza wa Jalla said to her, do not say anything. You will not be defending yourself. Point to the child. فَأَشَارَتْ إِلَيْهِ. This is in Surah Al-Maryam. قالوا كيف نكلم من كان في المهدي صبيا. They said, how could we talk with a baby, with an infant child? How could we talk to him? She said, talk to him. And she at that time was fasting, because those days there were different types of fasting. One of them was that you don't talk. You just do a'mal. And I wish we had that in this day, because the tongue needs fasting in this time of age. That we say whatever comes to our mind. We don't scan it thinking what is the consequence of what we're saying. We just say it, and if something bad happens, we say, oh, I made something terribly wrong. There was something wrong with that, what I said. We don't scan it. And this is why Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib said in Nahj al-Balagha, he said, a sane person, an aqil, thinks before he talks. And an insane person, he talks and then he thinks. He talks, he says something to his parents, he says something to his friends, and then afterward when he says that had a negative impact, he says, oh my God, what did I do that for? So she told them, speak to the child. She signed to the child. She said, talk to the child. He will tell you what is going on. And Imam Rida was going back to that. He was saying, Allah Azza wa Jal gave the wisdom to an infant child, and that was Isa. And he was much younger than Jawad. Couldn't he give him the wisdom and the knowledge to Jawad al-Aim? And what does Isa say? قَالَ إِنِّي عَبْدُ اللَّهِ. I am the servant of Allah. آتاني الكتاب وجعلني نبيا. And who is that talking? Is that a matured, a 30-year-old Isa? No, this is an infant. He's saying this to the people, that I became a prophet. And that was a miracle. So whenever people came to Imam al-Rida and they asked Imam al-Rida, how could this child be an Imam? Imam will answer them like that. He will tell them, look at what happened to Isa. And the same Lord that pointed Isa, he accepted Isa to be the next leader. He gave Isa the authority to become the next prophet. In his time, he has the authority, he has the power to give it to Jawad al-Aim. And this brings us to this topic, that who makes a choice, who is the Imam or the Prophet, who is going to be the next Prophet or the next Imam. And that is Allah Azza wa Jal. Because when it comes to Ghadir al-Khum, to Ghadir, many people, when Rasulullah, he recited a long speech. And if you go look in Kitab al-Ghadir, Allama al-Amini, you find it's a long speech. Rasulullah talks about many things. In the end, he says, am I your master? They said, yes. Am I more authorized on your life than yourself to on yours? They said, yes, Ya Rasulullah. You are the leader. And then he says, Man kuntu mawla fahada aliyun mawla. Whoever I am their master, Ali is their master. When Rasulullah came down and everyone came to Imam Ali saying to him, Bakhin lak, you became the next leader. When they came to Rasulullah, many of the Arabs, they said to him, okay, wait a minute. You came and you said there is one God. We said yes. You said worship that God. We said yes. You said go to Hajj. We went to Hajj, to the pilgrimage. You said pay the zakat, and we paid. Now you come and you appoint your cousin Ali ibn Abi Talib as our next leader. Is that from you or from Allah? What does Rasulullah says? He says, this is from Allah. It's not from me. لن ينطق عن الهوى إن هو إلا وحي يوحى. Allah makes a choice. This comes to Imam al-Jawad. When Imam al-Jawad, عليه أفضل الصلاة والسلام, he farewelled his father, when he said his goodbyes, and his father was taken to Tus, to Khurasan, Imam at that time was 4 years of age. 4. And Imam passed away later on when Imam al-Jawad was at the age of 8. 8 years old, this young lad, people now they're asking, who is the next Imam? He is the Imam. How could he be the Imam? So here they come with questions. As the Rawaya says, Abdullah, the cousin, the brother of Imam al-Rida, Abdullah, brother of Imam al-Rida, uncle of Imam al-Jawad, he came to the mosque and he said, I am your leader, your Imam. They said, how could you be the Imam? Okay, sit down, let me ask you questions. And they started asking him questions. Among those questions, this was 2 questions they asked him. One was, if a person tells his wife, I divorce you at the amount of the stars that are in the skies, what is the meaning of that? What is the definition? How can you interpret that? What can you say to that? And he says, okay, because of the 3 stars of Gemini, he has divorced her. They never heard of that. Okay, this is the first one. The second question, if a man commits adultery with an animal, what is the hukum on that? He said, okay, they have to cut his hands off. Later on, they have to beat him 100 lashes. At that time, Imam al-Jawad came in. And all the scholars are sitting down confused. Could he be the next Imam? About Abdullah. Because every question they're asking, he's bringing different answers that his father, Imam al-Sadiq, and his grandfathers, they never came with this kind of answers. It's new. Gemini, and they have to cut his hand and hit him 100 lashes. When Imam al-Jawad came in, these people, they stood up with that hesitation. They paid their respect. Imam al-Jawad came, sat down, and Imam al-Jawad said, I am the next Imam. He said, your uncle was saying he's the Imam. We asked him these questions, he couldn't answer. Okay, you answer the questions if you are the real Imam. They asked him the same question. If a man comes to his wife and says to his wife, I divorce you at the amount of the stars in the sky, what is the hukum? Imam al-Jawad looked at them and he said, after the second one, if he comes to the third, he cannot be revoked. He cannot go back to it. No, makes sense. And then they said, well, your uncle said 3 stars of the Gemini. Imam looked at his uncle. He said, where did you get that from? This is something new. Where did you get it? And he said, yes, well, I heard my father saying that. And Imam al-Jawad said to his uncle, Ya Am, ittaqillah, have some taqwa, be pious. Do not come with answers that you never heard before. You just come with answers that Allah Azza wa Jal hasn't pointed to anyone. They came and they asked the second question. They said, what about the second question? If a man commits adultery to the animal, and Imam answered this question as well. He said the animal has to be marked and have to be sent out of the town, and the man such and such. And then Imam looked at his uncle angrily because his uncle said something different. He said his hand should be cut off and he will be beaten 100 times. Imam said to him, where did you get this answer from? He said, from your father, Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, from my brother. He said, no, it was different question. People came to him, they said this man, they brought a man in his time of Imam al-Rida. They said this man went to a grave, he dug up the grave, he got a person out, she was a female, he committed adultery with her, and he stole the coffin. What was the hukum for that one? Imam al-Rida said such and such, that his hand should be cut off because of stealing, and he should be whipped 100 times because he committed adultery. And that was for that hukum, not this one. So the people said, okay, that makes sense. This person knows what he's answering. An 8-year-old, but he has the knowledge of the universe. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So at this young age, 8 years of age, People, they still want to ask questions. The Rawaya said they asked 30,000 questions from Imam al-Jawad. And it's sad that we don't have those questions. Because for every question they ask, we have an answer that we can use in our jurisprudence, in our daily lives. But what happened in history, we find out that most of the books of the Shia were destroyed, and you cannot find those questions. 30,000 questions by the enemy and the friend. One of those enemies was Yahya ibn Aktham. Because we have a story of Imam with Ma'mun. Ma'mun was passing the streets of Baghdad with his entourage, horses, guards, soldiers. They passing and he's going to hunting. Where he was passing, there were kids. Among those kids was Imam al-Jawad. As soon as the kids, they saw an entourage coming from Ma'mun's side, when they saw Ma'mun coming toward them, they all scattered. They went into hiding. But Imam al-Jawad was still standing. He didn't move. Ma'mun came and he looked at Imam al-Jawad. He said, young man, why didn't you move with them? You ran away. Why didn't you escape? Imam al-Jawad looked at Ma'mun and said, for two reasons. Why? One is that I haven't committed any crime to run away. I haven't done anything wrong. Two, you have too many space. If you couldn't go from my side, you could have gone from the other side. He said, who are you? He said, I am Jawad, Muhammad ibn Ali, the son of Ali ibn Musa al-Radha, to Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, to Fatima al-Zahra, and into Rasulullah. Ma'mun, he left. While he was on hunting, he had a hawk. His hawk, his eagle, went to a river and caught for him a fish, small fish. He brought that fish to Ma'mun. Ma'mun took that fish and he placed it in his fist. Coming back, Imam al-Jawad was still standing there. He came to Imam al-Jawad and he said, you young lad, I have a question. He said, what is your question? He said, what am I holding in my fist? He said, Allah Azza wa Jal has created an eagle for the kings. That eagle goes to the river, captures a fish, brings that fish to the king. The king takes that fish and places in his fist. And then he comes and he asks the son of Rasulullah what I have in my fist. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So you see a very eloquent answer. So when Ma'mun saw this answer from this young lad, he wanted him to come to accompany him in Baghdad. He took him to Baghdad and he said, my daughter al-Fadl is yours. But you are young now, so marry her whenever you want. And we have a rawaya, he married al-Fadl at the age of 16. Why did Ma'mun wanted Imam al-Jawad to marry al-Fadl, his daughter? One was that he wanted a son to be born by his daughter, al-Fadl, and that son has the blood of the Abbasids and the Alawis. So they can cut off the mojo, they called it, or the sihr, or the magic of Bani Hashim. So the lineage of the Alawis can be from his side. That was one of the reasons. The second one was he wanted Imam al-Jawad to be under his surveillance all the time. They can see what Imam al-Jawad is doing. So this woman, al-Fadl, was she a good woman? She was the opposite of that. al-Fadl, a woman who came and killed Imam al-Jawad. The worst way. And she was a spy in Imam al-Jawad's house. Now when he announces Ma'mun, he says that I have given my daughter in marriage for this young man, Jawad, Muhammad ibn Ali, the son of Ali ibn Musa al-Radha. The Abbasids, they came, they said, what are you doing? We had a big problem when you appointed Ali ibn Musa as your heir, and now we got rid of him, now you bring his son. and he's not worthy. And they don't understand what is behind their logic, what is behind marrying al-Fadl to Imam al-Jawad. One of the people that he said, why are you giving your daughter to this man, was Yahya ibn Aktham. Listen to this story, pay attention. Yahya ibn Aktham at that time was the chief judge, and he was the most knowledgeable person in that time, and he was known by everyone. Yahya ibn Aktham, he came to ask Imam al-Jawad a question, to bring Imam al-Jawad down, so everyone can see that Imam al-Jawad has no knowledge. So he came to Imam al-Jawad. He said, you, aren't you the Imam of the Shia? He said, yes. He said, I ask you a question, answer me. What is the mas'ala, the answer for a pilgrim, a Hajj, who goes to a pilgrimage and he kills a Sayyid? He kills an animal. Imam al-Jawad said to him, is that your question? He said, yes. He said, this is very vague. Be more specific. And Imam al-Jawad pointed out 16 different types. He said, was that man free or slave? Was that during the night or day? What, did he kill the animal on purpose or accident? Did he go to Hajj or to Umrah? And this is all he's asking Yahya ibn Aktham. Yahya ibn Aktham stood there and he didn't know the answer. And Imam al-Jawad said to him, you want the answers for all of them? He said, yes. And Imam al-Jawad started answering all those questions. He said, if he was free, this is the kafara. If he was slave, this is the kafara. If he killed the animal on purpose, this is the kafara. If he was accident, this is. And Yahya standing there doesn't know what to say. Now, Imam al-Jawad told Yahya, let me ask you a question. You asked me a question and I gave you the answer. Now let me ask you a question. Who is that person that goes to the house in the morning? That woman is haram on him. In the morning she's haram. During the day she's halal. During the afternoon she's haram. During the evening she's haram. And then she's halal again. Yahya stood there, never heard of that. He said, don't you know the answer? He said, no, I don't know the answer. He said, the woman that he went to, in the morning she was a slave. She was haram. Later on he married her, she became halal. After that, he said to her that you are like the back of my mother. He left her. She became haram. He went back to her afterwards, she became halal. Yes, she became haram, and then he went back to her in the end of the night, he remarried her, she became halal. Yahya never heard of that. And you find that these people, when they found a young man at the age of 8 answering this kind of questions, they became very, very jealous of Imam al-Jawad. How could this young man come to the court of Ma'mun and answer all these questions? And Imam al-Jawad used to come and answer all questions without hesitation. One of the questions that Imam al-Jawad answered, and that was the reason for Imam al-Jawad to be killed by al-Fadl, was that in the time of Mu'tasim. Mu'tasim was the brother of Ma'mun, the younger brother. When he took over Mu'tasim, a person came to the court of Mu'tasim, to the castle, and he said, I am a thief. I stole. So do to me what you have to do to the thief, that you have to cut their hands. So people came, these scholars, they came, and every one of them was saying something. They said, we have to cut his fingers. The other said, we have to cut his hand from here. Another one said, from his elbow. Everyone different type. Mu'tasim said, no. Ask Jawad, Muhammad ibn Ali al-Ridha. Ask him. When Imam al-Jawad came, Imam al-Jawad, when they asked him without hesitation, because this is in the Quran, they said, what should we cut, his hand or his arm? He said, his fingers. They said, why? He said, because he needs that palm to do the sajda. And just imagine, these are scholars, they stand in there, and they don't know the answer, a young man comes in his 20s and he answers the question without hesitation. So what that would do to them? Jealousy. How could he answer the question? Now, this was a brief biography of Imam al-Jawad. What do we gather on from this biography? What do we learn? One thing, that Allah Azza wa Jal points the Imams, not us, not the people. We don't gather around for election and we elect the one we want to elect. Allah Azza wa Jal elects that person. And that happened during all time, and every time Allah, He appointed 124,000 prophets and the 12 Imams. And every one of them were fought by the people that were in the time. For example, Rasulullah, the Jews, they start fighting Rasulullah because he was in the son, one of the lineage of Isaac, Ishaq. He was one of the sons of Ismail. And the Jews weren't happy. The Jews came on and they said, no, how could this be happening? So this is was the first lesson, that Allah Azza wa Jal points the Imams. The second one is, what do we learn from that? What is the gaining? What do we gain? When we go to the books of Ahadith, when we go to the books of biographies of A'immah, Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I don't know if the ladies are listening, because we don't have that much time. We want to get everything in one place, talking about the Imam. But if no one is listening and some people are playing with their iPhones or iPads and the others are talking, having a conversation, then why are we here? There's no use. We're just here gathering around looking at each other. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If you look at the biographies of Imam, for example, there is a book, there are 2 volumes about Imam al-Jawad. There are hadith of Imam al-Jawad. And there was one hadith I mentioned last week when it comes to being the friend of Allah, not only in public but also in private. That was one of the hadith. That you learn from Ahlul Bayt, there are people, there are Imams, they teach us how to live our daily life. When we go to school, how do we react? How do we talk to our teachers? When we go to work, how do we talk with our friends? When we are on Facebook, for example, or on Twitter, on all those social networks, social websites, how do we talk to others? Because what we're doing is we are talking to them as a believer of Ahlul Bayt. We believe in Ahlul Bayt. If you are a real believer of Ahlul Bayt, you really believe in Ahlul Bayt, alayhim salatu wassalam, you show them the real Islam, the akhlaq of Ahlul Bayt. Not the opposite. Not the opposite, because when they see you believe in Ahlul Bayt and your akhlaq is the opposite of what Ahlul Bayt have asked, they think these are your role models. Your role models taught you this. In the time that we live in now, there are people asking millions of people to join Islam using violence. Is this what Ahlul Bayt taught us? To use violence to ask people to join Islam? No. Actually, it was the opposite of that. A person came to Imam al-Sadiq, alayhi salatu wassalam. Listen to this question and the answer Imam answered to the story that how Imam reacted to this mulhid. And he was worse. He came to Imam al-Sadiq saying, I am God. And he was in his 20s or his 30s. Imam al-Sadiq looked at him and he said, you are God? He said, yes. He said, I have a couple of questions if you're real God. He said, what is your question? He said, you see those worms? There were worms on the floor, on the ground, in the dirt. He said, yes. He said, can you tell me which one is male, which one is female? He said, I don't know. Imam al-Sadiq said, okay. And look how Imam is talking to him. Very nice. He didn't say to him, you call yourself God, get out of here. No, Imam al-Sadiq was very gentle with him. He said, tell me which one is male, which one is female. He said, I don't know. He said, okay, another question. Where are they going? The one going to the right, where is he going? The one going to the left, where are they going? What are they doing? He said, I don't know. And Imam al-Sadiq looked at him and he said, what kind of God are you? That you don't know the gender of your creation and you don't know where they're going. This man came to himself, start thinking, really, this is a great question. How could I be God that I don't know these kind of things? And he realized he was on the wrong side. And he became a believer. This is a way of Ahlul Bayt. Talking to them gently, telling them a couple of simple questions, making them understand. Even if you go to other prophets, if you go to the prophets, for example, Salih. Prophet Salih in his time, the Riwayah said he became a prophet at the age of 16. He was 120 years of age when he said that is enough. It's enough. I have to do something different now. He came to the people and he said, we have to do something different. Either your gods can perform a miracle for me that I become the believer of your gods, or the opposite. My God can do something for you. And he became a believer of my God. So this is a good, yeah, let's do that. After 104 years, there was no believers. They said, okay, now let me ask your gods. I want one thing from your gods. I want them to tell me my name, and I want them to tell me who I am. Who is my father, who is my mother? They said, no problem. They took him to the temple, and there was all sorts of gods, made one by rock, another one with wood, another one from silver, another one from gold. He looked at the gods, and they said, okay, ask them. He said, who am I? Man ana wa man antum? No answer. Dead silent. I told him, ask them again. They might be sleeping. The gods might be sleeping. Wake them up. He started shouting, Man antum wa man ana. Look at what kind of people he was dealing with. They said, ask them again. They might be in deep sleep. You have to wake them up. What kind of gods they go to sleep? For the third time he asked, Man antum wa man ana. There was no answer. They said, yeah, we realize that our gods are powerless. They have nothing to do. They can't do anything. And he said to them, how could you believe in a God that you made yourself? That you are older than them. They're not even older than you. You are older than them. He said, now let's do the opposite. Let us ask something from your God. You should ask anything from my God. They said, we want something, a miracle that hasn't been done before. They said, whatever you want, just name it. They said, do you see that big mountain outside? And one of the riwayahs, they say that mountain was a mountain they used to worship. Because it was a big mountain, they said, this is a connection to Allah, to the Creator. These people, Qawm Thamud. They said, this mountain, this big mountain, we want your God to make this mountain, a camel comes out from this mountain. We want the camel to be 9 months pregnant, one. And we want the camel to be red. And that was very rare at that time, to be red and to be pregnant. Let alone for a camel to come out of a mountain. That is a miracle itself. He said, okay, no problem, let's go. After he performed the miracle, he asked Allah Azza wa Jalla. Allah did it without hesitation. The camel came out and he was pregnant and he was red. What did they think? First they said, we believe in your God. Nu'minu bi ilahik. There is only one God and that is it. Later on when they saw, no, this has nothing, they can't benefit from it. There's nothing coming back to them. They can't gain from it. They said, let's kill it. So you find these kind of people, they dealt, their prophets and the Ahlul Bayt, they dealt with this kind of people. They don't know one side. They know only violence. And we learn from Ahlul Bayt how to talk with people in a right manner. You find this Prophet Salih, he dealt with them to the end. He said, now you killed the camel, an innocent camel with its child. So what is the deal? What we can do now? Allah Azza wa Jalla said that is it. A torture will come to them after 3 days. After 3 days, Allah gave them more time. He said, 3 days you have time to ask my forgiveness. And they said no. After 3 days they didn't ask forgiveness. On top of that, Allah gave them time to repent, but they didn't repent. So we learn from these kind of stories, even from Imam al-Jawad, to deal with people in the right way. And inshallah from next week, we talk about what is our role in the Western society. What can we do to bring the people, and each one of you, every one of you can do an impact, can have a good impact on people. Because for example, there's a story of Sayyid Hassan al-Shirazi. Sayyid Hassan al-Shirazi, he saw a reverend in Baghdad. He was passing out to people a Bible. And everyone was taking a Bible. And the story says he was passing it with one check, $100 in that time. He was passing money with the book. So these people, they used to take the book, even though they weren't Christians, they used to take it. Sayyid Hassan came to him and he said, do you know most of these people will just put this book, the Bible, on top of the shelf. They will not even read it. He said, we know that. Listen to this. He said, we do know that. We know that they're not going to read it themselves, but we hope that one of their children one day will wonder, what is that book on top of the shelf? Let me bring it down, go through it. And he goes through the Bible and he thinks to become a Christian. We hope maybe in 10 or 20 years that will happen. And Sayyid Hassan thought this is a good way to spread knowledge of Ahlul Bayt. He went and he printed a book about Fatima al-Zahra. He started spreading to people. One person, Sayyid Hassan was one person, Sayyid Hassan al-Shirazi. But he did something that the people, they realized about Ahlul Bayt. They realized about Fatima al-Zahra. Even Sayyid Hassan, another story, he went to the radio station in Baghdad and he asked them to broadcast the maqtal. Him and Sheikh Abd al-Zahra al-Ka'bi. They went and they gave the tape, and that was in the 60s, to the manager of the radio station. They said, broadcast the maqtal of Imam al-Hussein on the day of Ashura. He said, if I broadcast it, no one will listen. They said, just do it. They said, okay, let me think about it. And on the day of Ashura, in the morning, he broadcasted the maqtal. They called them again, the radio station. They said, can you put that again? He said, one day of Ashura, we broadcasted the maqtal of Imam Hussein 5 times. And how many people that came to the real Islam, the Shia of Ahlul Bayt, the school of Ahlul Bayt, by just listening to the maqtal. So we can do an impact. We can do something to change the world. Even one person can change. Changing ourselves first, and then changing what is around us. And starting from tonight. Thinking of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wassalam, their role and what they did, about a role model like Imam al-Jawad, who passed away in his 20s. He was 25 years of age. Another hadith says 23. A young man. Even coming to the days of Ashura, to the day of Ashura, you find people, they came, young lads, like Qasim, Ali al-Akbar, those were young people. But they sacrificed everything for the will of Allah Azza wa Jal.